Welcome, everybody, to Born Broke with your host, who's managed over $3 billion and is a serial entrepreneur, happens to be my best friend, hell of a guy, Mr. Mike Hofer.
Thanks, George. Thanks. Welcome to the show, everybody. Please, before we get started, let's subscribe and hit that like button. What are we going to talk about?
Welcome, everybody, to Born Broke with Mike Hofer. And today we're going to talk about real estate trends as they pertain, to our local region here, or are we going nationwide?
Go nationwide. I don't know. Do both.
Nationwide.
We'll do both.
Go.
Nationwide is on your side. It's not brought to you by Nationwide.
No. We wish. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Real estate. What do we want to talk about?
I don't know. You tell me.
I mean, that it's not affordable. Like,
It depends where.
Kids today, like, how are they going to afford a house?
This is what really...
It's concerning.
It's concerning because especially Californians are leaving California. There's been a mass exodus,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're moving into towns like in Idaho, in Nevada, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, all these places. And guess what? It's pushing out all the locals.
But it's also tax purposes.
I get it, but I'm just saying all the locals that are going to hand down this real estate to their kids or whatever. And now all these people are just driving up the cost per square foot. I know where I live, it's about $600 a square foot.
Well, hey, first of all, what we need you to do is subscribe. This is a very...
Yeah, you got to do that.
Everybody talks about real estate these days. Real estate has gone up 50% in the last, 5-10 years for sure. It's gone up like 50%. That's astronomical. Inflation, wages aren't going to keep up with that, and they're not going to catch up with it. Not only will they not keep up, they're not going to catch up. We need you to subscribe. We need you to write some good stuff in here. Let us talk about it. Let's hear from you and what you want to talk about as far as real estate's concerned, because, we're just here talking about this topic. And I think it's for young people today, it's a different landscape than when we came up.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine coming up today and a starter home is over $1 million?
Well, let's unpack that. Okay. Out of college.
Okay.
Out of college, what are you making if you have a decent job? Let's just start
60
there.
grand.
60 grand. Still 60 grand?
Probably 60, 70.
Okay. That's not good.
So, do you know that the majority of Americans don't make six figures?
Oh, I believe that. Oh, absolutely.
So coming out of college, you're probably making 60, 70 grand.
Well, I think I've got this pretty interesting infographic. I don't know if it's actually accurate, but we're talking about like Texas. The average home is here. You can read it.
Oh, look at an infographic.
An infographic. We should put it up.
This is low though. Average house price by state. So these are statewide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
California. These are very low. These are very, very low. So this means for the most part, you would be living probably not in a major city.
Yeah.
This is you're out in suburbia.
Like in California.
Not even suburbia. You're talking about California, average home price is $793,000.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
You're living out in the boonies.
Yeah, you're out in the desert, bro.
Yeah.
Texas, 336 for Texas.
But even so, so you're in California and the average, let's say that's the lowest price.
I don't know. We should check that data on that.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying we have to fact check this. This is a ballpark. The fact, how many years would you have to save? Granted, you don't make, you get an incremental raise every year if you're starting to crush it, then maybe some commission if you're in a sales role, or I don't know. But to get the amount of money with zero help from your family, and you're definitely renting a room in like a house with like 4 other.
You're packing it in for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, you're packing it in.
And then how many years do you have to do that to actually be able to afford a home at this point?
I'm gonna back it up on that a little bit. Our partner who isn't in the control room today, but typically he's teaching his son the cost of living, basically. And his son is like I don't know, 12 or 13 years old, he is gearing him mentally to build an ADU in the backyard. Because you can build an ADU depending on how elaborate you want to go for as low as, if you make it a studio, let's say 40 grand. If you want to make it more elaborate, you know, sky's the limit, but you're going to make an ADU, make a 1-bedroom ADU, you know, living room, a little kitchenette, bathroom, shower, 1 bedroom. Build it, live there if your parents have property, right?
So you're saying shack up with your parents?
No, you're not. You're living in a separate dwelling. You're living in an ADU.
Yeah,
we had a guest. Yeah, we had a guest on here, Greg Ubarian, who talked about California, Los Angeles, passing some kind of bill.
Number one, the designer in the world.
Yeah, passing some kind of bill where you can now sell your backyard for someone to buy it and build an ADU in it and actually live there.
And this is where?
Here in Los Angeles.
Not in Ventura County.
I don't know in Ventura. I don't know. We'd have to look it up. But he talked about Los Angeles has passed a bill or a law that you can sell your backyard.
Should we call in Greg right now?
No.
To ask him? You want to call him?
No, because we don't have time for that, and it's not going to go through the system. So
You could put it on the phone.
yeah. So I think that ADUs are something for the next generations to really look at, to be honest, right? Because what it'll do, it'll increase your relative or whoever's property you build it on. You live in a separate dwelling. You're paying cost per square footage to build rather than buy. Once you build it, depending on your financial situation, you'll get to a point where you can start really packing money away. And then you can...
So you sell a piece. Explain that again. You're selling...
Basically what he mentioned in his podcast,
Yeah.
that there is some bill or some law Los Angeles is passed or is passing that you can sell your backyard, you can subdivide your property, and someone can build an ADU in it and live there.
And they own that little piece of land?
That's correct. You sold it to them. So I don't know why you would do that and have somebody living in your backyard. That seems weird to me. But take away selling it and take away that. If you have kids, I'm talking about younger generations. If you are younger and you have the ability to build an ADU on a property that your family owns and they're willing to let you do it, you're increasing that property value and you're making yourself an affordable separate dwelling to live. I think that is a smart thing for saving money in the future. Otherwise, you're looking down the barrel of, like George said, probably renting for quite some time before you can actually afford to buy. Yeah. Again, not a bad thing, just a longer game plan. Mm-hmm. You know, I think also, because we're talking about current trends, you know, it'll be interesting to see what the interest rates do. You know, I'm reading that they're going to go down. I'm reading that they're going to stay high. I don't know that anyone really knows, right?
I've read that they're going down, and I'm going to stick with that.
I would hope that they go down. Yeah. I would hope they go down. You know, there's a whole nother thing you get into. You get into the tariffs, right? If the tariffs are actually something that gets in, you know, put into play, then you got to think that, you know, cost of building is going to be more expensive. Well, they're saying there's a short of a housing because there's not enough building. But if the tariffs go into play, now the building's more expensive. So then it's kind of counteracting each other. So I'm hoping that, you know, we see in the future here in the next year what it's going to play, what that play is going to be. I'm hoping they go down. I think that, you know, some people have spoken that they would like them to see it as low as 3 or under 3%. That would be amazing. You know, I've seen other people say that they're probably going to not go lower than 5.5, which is better than today. Today we're probably at 7, just under 7, you know? Yeah. And basically where the values are right now, they're just so expensive. It's like you put a 7% loan on a house. It's significantly different than if you put a 3%. You know, it's more than double. Yep. Which is insane. I mean, Greg even spoke about going back to Greg's interview. You guys should go back and watch Greg's interview if you want. He builds some of the most mind-blowing houses that the world has ever seen, to be honest. But Greg also, he had spoken about the housing market and renting versus buying, because you can, a lot of times right now you can rent for way less than if you go purchase currently, right? So your purchase power to rental power is lopsided, and right now it's a rental game. Yeah. Because, you know, for what you can rent for $3,500, $4,500, $5,500, it's going to cost you 10, 11 grand if you go buy it, plus the down payment, plus, you know? So it's going to be interesting what the market does. I think citywide, you know, cities, you're usually in pretty good shape. It's when you get more rural,
Rural.
yeah, rural. Yeah, I can't say that word
That's
very
a
well.
rural.
Yeah, but when you get away from the city, where it becomes a little more fluctuating, if you will, because you know, not as many people are looking to buy out there. Not always, but you know, like George mentioned earlier, you know, you got to look at these states where the taxes are different too. You know,
Yeah.
property taxes. I mean, like in Nevada, I mean, California and Florida insurance companies are trying to pull out. California because of fires, you know, Florida because of the hurricanes.
No, the alligators. A lot of alligator attacks. I'm joking.
That's why
hurricanes.
Oh, okay. I was like, seriously? I was like, wow, that's like, kind of crazy.
I was cueing you that it was a joke, and you bought into it.
Yeah, I was thinking anacondas next.
No, those are bad too. Pythons are really bad.
Yeah, don't they have hunting season down there? That's a whole nother show.
I love Florida.
That's another show. But anyway, you know, so California and Florida, you know, from an insurance standpoint, you know, we don't know what's going to happen there. It's getting really dicey. You lost your insurance. Another buddy lost my insurance.
I'm not gonna say who they were.
Yeah,
but I had them for almost 15 years.
That's wild.
Bundled with my vehicles.
Wow.
Everything, and they just dropped me.
They can. That's the problem. They
can.
Yeah.
And so I have to shift my cars away because I refuse to pay them. Like I'll go get my auto insurance. So I'm not going to give them.
I'm sure you're not the only person doing that. I'm sure there's a lot of people doing that.
I'm a little bitter.
Yeah.
But had a great agent, and his arms were in the air, and like they basically said, everybody's getting dropped. So what happens?
Because they took a hit.
So what happens when every single insurance company pulls out of California? What happens to the real estate values? Like you're like these homes are uninsured.
Well, that's a great
plan. I think you have to take.
Yeah, but that's a great question. I mean, I think you're gonna see if that happens, you have a major shift in how it works, right? So you can't get a loan from a bank or a financial institution on a house unless you can show that you have insurance.
Correct.
Because if it burns down or whatever, they want to make sure that what they're funding, they can actually recoup.
Yeah.
I think you might see a shift, you know, and this is just me coming up with stuff. You might see a shift where the banks are going to have to take out a different type of insurance, right? Because the financial institution as a whole,
somebody
have to, or, you know, they're going to, unfortunately, and this is going to sound sad, they're going to put the onus on us, and they're just going to say, buy at your own risk.
Right.
And you're just going to have to deal with it. It's kind of like health insurance.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Buy at your own risk, and you know, I think people will be smarter on where they purchase. I think they'll think about it. They're not going to go buy in the fire canyon as easily as if they would, you know, if they knew they had insurance to back them up if the damn thing burns down. Yeah. But, you know, when the insurance company says, oh, no, we're not going to insure you because you're in the fire canyon, you're going to go, I don't know if I want to take that risk.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's interesting, but it's definitely, times are changing. There's a lot of things going on. It's a lot of things to think about. I mean, for our younger viewers, I think it's about the rent and looking at if you have the ability for ADUs. That's my opinion, because it's affordable to a certain degree, and it also increases the value of an asset that you might one day inherit.
I wonder what that goes for. To buy a sliver of somebody's backyard with, I mean, so you're just selling the backyard and they have to build the ADU?
Yeah.
Okay, so
you're just selling the land.
You're just selling the land and going,
I guess, yeah. We can Google it after this.
Just don't ruin.
I don't want to bore anyone, but
just don't ruin my view and build your ADU too.
I can tell you. I can tell you exactly who wants to be. Well,
Not me.
Well, that's a good point. ADUs.
I had a good point.
Yeah,
really?
But you said don't build too tall. ADUs have strict, like, restrictions on what you can do. Yeah. Setback restriction, height restrictions, all that kind of stuff, even size. So you can't go building a house. That's the whole point. It has to be an ADU. It can't be, you can't be building a 2-story, 4,000 square foot ADU. I don't think.
What is this? Because I know when I built my storage unit that I had to destruct, long story, that was 120 square feet.
Well, you didn't
need 10 by 12. You didn't need a permit.
Correct.
You go any longer or any bigger than 120 square feet, you have to pull a permit, and then.
Sure. Well, it's because you start putting plumbing in. You got to pull a permit. Electrical, blah 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 blah. All this stuff you have to permit. in the city. So they make sure it's to code. That's how they regulate. But those permits are expensive. You know, those permits can cost you $24,000.
Oh, yeah. Greg was also talking about amnesty. Remember about like if you already have something that you've
well, if you buy
should have been approved.
Correct. If you buy a property that has unpermitted stuff on it, then going in.
But it's good. It's built well. You should be able to go back and
Sure. That's what he thought so too. That's why he was saying he was hoping or thinking that there should be some amnesty in regard to that. But I think, you know, ultimately real estate as a whole, it fluctuates. It goes up and it goes down. You need to watch the rates. You know, some of you will only buy one house in your life. You'll buy one house and you'll live there and there's nothing wrong with that. You'll have a great time and you know, that's what people do. Or others, you know, you'll buy a house and you'll have a great career and then you'll sell that house and you'll move up to the bigger house and you'll keep going. That's great too. You know, some of you will stay renting. And if that works for you and budgetarily it works for you, fantastic. There's no wrong way to do it. But like George was saying, I think on another episode, when you fall on hard times, in order to own an asset, or not in order, but having an asset that has equity or the potential for equity actually helps you, because you can pull equity out in times of need for cash, right? And there's all different things. You can do a refinance, which is basically restructuring your mortgage. It starts over if you refinance. So let's say you have a 30-year fixed mortgage and you're 5 years in, but you go refinance for another 30, then it starts at 30 again. You lost those 5 years you already paid. Now you didn't.
We've all been. I think everybody's kind of been there because you go for the lower rate. But for me, I'm just looking at the amortization and I'm going.
You don't lose your money per se.
I know, but you have a way smaller payment. But
correct.
You're
starting over.
You're 30.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So, you know, and then, you know, if you have equity in the house, which is, you know, it's appraised or it's worth more than what you bought it for, or you've paid it down, so it has more value in it, you can do home equity lines of credit that you can have sitting on the sideline, you know, all kinds of rate differences in those, but there's all kinds of things you can play with. And then they always say, don't sell an asset unless you absolutely have to. And a house is one of those things. They're just getting harder to obtain. Yeah. They're getting harder to obtain on a lot of levels. And some people say a house isn't a good asset anymore. I disagree. I think a house is a good asset. It just depends on what you're looking to use it for and how you're using it.
You don't want to leverage it either. I had a really good real estate buddy who said if you buy a home and you want to buy another one, your second home, you should be able to do it with your own money. Do not pull equity from your home, because that's your home. If things go like bad for the second home or the market turns and you're like, wait a minute, now I have less equity in my other house. So you want to pull, like, ideally the second home that you buy, that gains equity, and pull out of there. So you never have to risk your own home.
That's a good point, George. And
because it's your home.
Yeah, you have a lot of good points. If you're playing it safe, yes, that's correct. You don't want to risk the house you live in.
If you're playing it safe.
Playing it safe. There's so many different ways. And again, you'll hear me a million times over say, consult a financial advisor if you have the ability to. And if you don't, go to a bank and just talk to your bank and ask them questions. But yeah, if you're going to play it safe, which I like to play it safe, you're going to get a 30-year fixed mortgage, because it will never change for those 30 years, and you can structure your life around what that payment is. Yeah. If you want to gamble, you go and get what's called an ARM. 3-year ARM, 5-year ARM, 7-year ARM. A lot of times 3, 5, and 7s are people that are willing to gamble on their house, right? Typically it might be a lower interest rate because it's only good for the 3 years, the 5 years, or the 7, and then it'll go to current market, which could be higher. Or it could be lower. If it goes higher, your payment's going to go higher. You have to be able to maintain that with your current income. If it goes lower, you gambled and you won, and you can refinance that into whatever you want. However, those types of people, from what I've gathered over my years, don't fall in love with their home, right? Their home is just a dwelling that it's a vehicle. So it's like they either know they can buy it off if the rates go up and they can just pay cash for it. They know that they can sell it, or they know they'll just refinance it. They're not like, but if you want to play it safe because you don't have a lot to fall back on and you're not inherited a bunch of money, I would suggest go 30-year fixed. Don't gamble with your home. Like George said, if you can afford a second home as starting a real estate portfolio, asset portfolio, you buy a second home, let that value go up. Now you can start to play with that money to leverage other properties if that's the game you want to play.
Yeah.
But I do agree. That was a great point.
I mean, it's just what I've heard. I'm not like, I just tend to agree with it because it's, you don't want to uproot a family. You don't want to, especially if you're just, if I didn't have a family, and I wouldn't even have made that statement. I would have been like, okay, I've got X amount of equity. Let's pull it out. Let's buy another property.
Sure.
And then when that appreciates, I'm going to pull out of there and just keep doing it. And then as long as I can rent out those places, and God forbid, I need a fund if I can't find a renter. So like I have 2 or 3 properties. You can't find a renter for any of it, and all of a sudden you're like, things get real quick.
No, they get real quick. Absolutely.
And you're scrambling.
But in life, everything you just spoke about is risk, reward, and options.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to give yourself options and make sure those options are good.
Perfect. Way to end the episode.
Yeah.
That's a wrap.